You guys talk about the, selling American workers now. I love it. It's like a warm, nutritious bowl of carrots and soup. And then you put in the anti-immigrant poop. And then I can't eat it because I don't agree about the anti-immigrant poop.
Well, that's what I think is the big... It's been both parties saying that to voters, and I mean, that's what Bernie Sanders used to say. We need to protect American jobs. That's what Jesse Jackson used to stand and protest at the border. Whose jobs are being taken? Cesar Chavez, he was the one who originated the phrase wetbacks to protect the Hispanics who already lived here. Okay, boo Cesar Chavez, or you boo a fact. And as soon as Bernie started running for president, I would have agreed with him. I mean, if Trump hadn't come along on trade and on immigration, because he wanted to protect American jobs for the working class. And then as soon as he runs for office as a Democrat, and this is often what happens with both parties, well, okay, sorry, now you have to go speak to La Raza, and now you're for open borders. And that's exactly what happened. 2 weeks after he announced, he spoke to La Raza, changed his position 180 degrees. I think you see a lot of the same thing with Elizabeth Warren. If I listen to her rhetoric, her anti-Wall Street rhetoric, I am second to none in being, anti the bankers and Wall Street and plutocrats who really don't care about ordinary people. There has been a division of the haves and the have-nots like we have not seen in history before, and that is globalism. But as soon as you start running with one of those parties, you have to toe the line and suck up to Wall Street.
So let's talk about globalism, right? You mentioned Brexit briefly. I'd be interested in both of your kind of opinions. If you think what happened in England is going to potentially come over here, or if you think it could manifest itself differently here.
I think it already has.
Yeah, you see a parallel.
Donald Trump got more votes than any Republican in history, and that is with the entire establishment denouncing him. This isn't how it's done, and no, you can't talk about these things. I mean, it really is amazing that it wasn't just the Democratic Party. It wasn't just the Republican Party. It was also the entire media. It's also the entire donor class, all telling him he can't talk about this stuff. And he wins more votes than any Republican in primary history.
Yeah, I think for me the immigration stuff is very painful because I know this is not an abstract conversation for me. I'm very close to folks who are immigrants, who come from immigrant families, immigrant neighborhoods. I did a lot of my work in Oakland, in the Bay Area. I'm very close to a bunch of Muslims. And so for me, it's been very, very difficult this year. First of all, there's just been this complete erasure of even the most recent history. You said we've done nothing on the border. Au contraire. In fact, if you talk to the Latino community, they call President Obama the deporter-in-chief. And the reason they do that is because President Obama, trying to show Republicans that he could be tough on the border, trying to get a deal done, deported more people than any president has ever done, put more personnel and technology on the border than anyone has ever done. We have a net negative immigration now from Mexico, more Mexicans leaving than coming, and it still wasn't enough. The reason that the president then turns around and says, well, I use executive action to go against my own base, outrage my own base, destroy families in my own base, trying to show you that we could cut a deal. Now I'm going to use executive power to do something to try to make it a little bit better. But we can't even share facts. This is the first choose your news election. You pick your filter gives you your facts, and we can't even agree on the basics. It is not true that we have an open border. It is not true the president hasn't done anything. The problem is he got left at the altar when he did.
Speaking of this, immigration action was big this week with what happened with the Supreme Court. It was a huge blow to Obama's executive action policies, effectively blocking the programs for the rest of his time in office. What is your reaction to that ruling? Were you surprised by it? And what impact do you think it was going to have here in the election?
I think it'll probably help Donald Trump. I mean, the Brexit election, it wasn't about the trade deals. They can make the trade deals they want to make. Brexit was about immigration. Trump is about immigration. And it's not about not liking immigrants. Nobody's out immigranting me, especially with the Muslims. The point is, these are people who are already here. It isn't liking Muslims or liking Hispanics. It's, do we take care of the people who already live here? And bringing in more and more immigrants, and no, he is not the deporter-in-chief. I know this is very big at the Huffington Post. What they did is they redefined what counts as a deportation. Up until Obama, a deportation meant you were in the country, they caught you and deported you. Obama started counting, turning them away at the border. Well, okay, this is like changing the grade. A passing grade is now going to be 40 instead of 70. And look at all the kids who have passed. So they changed the definition of deportation. Look, the immigrants who are already here are going to be a big part of the vote for Trump. They're the ones whose wages are being driven down. It's not you. It's not me. It's probably not a lot of people in this audience. No, to the contrary, you're very happy because you get such cheap maids. And they're so docile. And you have your chef. And even in LA, you have pool boys even if you don't have a pool. No, this idea that you are the ones who are speaking for low-wage workers is preposterous. These low-wage workers would like a little less competition for their jobs. It is stunning how the very rich have gotten so much richer, and wages, especially for the working class, have been flat for 20 years. Well, they'd like their wages to go up. If we're going to bring in more immigrants, I want them competing with senators, congressmen, journalists, TV pundits, lawyers, not competing with, the guy who does your landscaping. This idea that, you get to bring in all these poor people doing low-wage work. Yeah, it's good for them, and it's good for the rich people who hire them. But don't strut around like you're Martin Luther King. This is good for you. It's bad for your mate.
So the facts. I'll just try to hang out with the facts. You said that the existing, Latino community is going to be the one that stands with Trump because he's so tough on their cousins and their friends. This particular, if that were true, I would be very, very worried because I would feel that maybe somehow I was overreacting to what strikes me as racial hostility to this particular immigrant group. But here's reality. Something very interesting is happening with the Latino community. The Latino community used to be a fiction. Let's be very clear. If you look at the polls in, say, 1989, 1990, 91, you ask people that we now call Latinos, do you think of yourself as a Latino, and do you think you have anything in common with other people who are quote-unquote Latino? Only 20% of people said yes. Why? They said, I'm not a Latino. I'm a Mexican, I'm a Puerto Rican, I'm a Dominican, I'm a Guatemalan, what is this Latino? No, I have nothing in common with those people at all. That's how they felt. What has happened is that people who I think speak in a way that is so loose, I'm just being as kind as I can be, that's so loose, it sounds like they're saying, I'm not saying they're saying this, but when you talk about people that you don't talk to, let's say that again, when you talk about communities you don't talk to, then you wind up making mistakes. And one mistake that gets made by the Republicans, which I appreciate them for doing, I hope they keep doing it, is that they sound like they're saying something like this. All Latinos are Mexicans. All Mexicans are immigrants. Most immigrants are illegal or undocumented. And most of them are rapists and horrible people. But that's not what they mean to say. But when you talk about people that you don't talk to and you don't course correct for the reaction, now what's happened is more than 50% of Latinos say, guess what? We are a community now. They have been pushed into this identity. Democrats could not do this. We're not competent enough. Democrats are not good enough. This is not PC. We tried with the PC thing to utterly fail. They had nothing to do with it. But what happened is this level of antipathy and tone deafness has created now a massive political constituency. You say the immigrants are going to come his way. Right now, the Cubans, not far leftist as a community, the Cubans are 82% against Trump. The Cubans. The Mexicans are 91% against Trump. Either all of them are mishearing you, or somebody is saying something horribly offensive and you're creating the thing that you actually don't want to create.
First of all, you claim that I'm not talking to these people who go around calling themselves Hispanics. No, I think that's mostly social justice warriors. I do talk to Cubans, Colombians, Dominicans, and Puerto Ricans. And the idea that they do not see themselves as Cubans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and so on is absurd. My argument is not that suddenly all of these groups are going to vote for Donald Trump. It's that you are not helping them. You claim you're speaking for them, but in fact, you're speaking for yourself as the overlord of the more and more cheap labor coming in. The vote isn't going to go, I think, Donald Trump will get the same percentage of the Hispanic vote that, oh, that's right, every Republican always gets. It's 30%. It doesn't matter if you're George Bush, John McCain, Mitt Romney, Jan Brewer, it's about 30%. Now you'll have all of the people who don't think of themselves as Colombians, Mexicans, Cubans.
Who won the 2016 Republican nomination, as you know, and as a result of that has a right to impose his immigration views in the country. How did that work?
First, I want to say, boy, Donald Trump is right. These dreamers are fabulous. They're great. They're fantastic. I can't wait for them to be our fellow citizens. And yeah, I mean, I think everybody's wondering, where did Lindsey Graham come from? Who nominated him to be negotiating this? He ran for president. He got literally 0 votes, was the first and most vicious in attacking Donald Trump, the candidate. So how is it that he's the one in this? Why does he have a seat at the table at all on immigration negotiations, much less, you know, he's the leader of what the Republicans stand for? And, you know, as I say in my column, it does make any normal observer think the fix is in. Why are other Republican senators allowing this? If it had been back during the Iraq War, Republicans wouldn't have allowed anti-war Republican Chuck Hagel to go and say, oh, he represents our views on the war. We're going to send him in. No, they'd say, no, not him. Don't talk to him. Why is the media talking to him? Why is the president talking to him? He doesn't represent us. But the donors want the cheap labor. I mean, the one thing, Tucker, that's going to be fun if we lose this is watching all of these short-sighted, idiotic businessmen try to do business in a country run by the likes of Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, that will be amusing, but sad for the rest of us. So, but there's a deeper question about democracy here. So if the public has been clear in poll after poll about what it wants and what it doesn't want on the question of immigration, and it went to the trouble of electing Donald Trump against all odds and all predictions, just to express that view, and it still can't get what it demonstrably wants in immigration, is it possible for the public to have a say in this?
No, it's amazing. I mean, it is beyond what you just described. I was looking through Nexus transcripts today. The fact that Donald Trump is president, it was utterly implausible. It's like a Hollywood movie. And this isn't the first time. I mean, you keep hearing these phony polls being cited by the media showing that Americans love dreamers. They love them, just like that one you interviewed. Who couldn't love her? They love them. But every time they have an actual ballot, every time for 20 years now, they will vote against bail for illegals, against government services for illegals. They'll vote for Donald Trump. They'll vote for English as the national language when they're This Harvard poll that just came out shows more Americans would like zero immigration than our current immigration policy. But the way they pull off these phony polls is by, I mean, I didn't need to read Saul Alinsky to know that this is not a good way to take a poll. They personalize it. They say, oh, do you want to deport Juanita the maid? They make it about a specific person. No, I want questions like, do you want more or less immigration? Do you think people who break the law should be able to become citizens and start collecting welfare right away? Do you think we should be dumping millions of low-wage workers on the country, which is going to come back? I mean, Trump may think he is a genius, and in some ways he is. He has an uncanny sense for what are popular issues. That's why he won. He may be able to roll over the never-Trumpers, but if he continues down this line, former Trumpers is going to be a much more difficult category for him.
You just think in a democracy, you can't ignore what people want forever, or else you're going to get a pretty bad backlash, I think. And thank you for coming on. I appreciate that.